Shamina, and
And
we're
we're
motion
motion ball.
ball. Woo woo. So today is our season 2 finale. But before we get into
So
that,
crazy.
we want to thank our patrons, Therese Gallagher, Kevin Gallagher, and Joanne Stewart for your continued support, and we love you guys. Thanks.
You the real MVPs.
Yes.
But also today we are going to be having a guest on. We both have known her for a long time, and she actually she's the last, how we said season 2, like the ending of it, we were gonna cover viewers' questions. So her question is about coping mechanisms. So we're gonna see where the episode takes us, because she's like me and we talk a lot and she has a lot of questions. So we're just gonna see what happens.
So
So are you all ready?
let's get emotionful.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome.
All right. So
I move my sandwich. This is weird. Okay.
Oksana did say she's a little nervous, but that's all good because we're here to calm your nerves. But so I kind of did a little brief of like, we're just gonna see where this episode goes, because I said you're like me, we talk a lot, we ask a lot of questions, but I know originally you had reached out to us asking about like coping mechanisms and things like that, like maybe like when you're stressed, or do you want to give more description, or if you have another question you can go with, if you have a better question.
Like, okay, it's been such a long time since I said that, but like, I have like different emotions now than I did then. So I'm about to be fighting. I don't know where to start. Like, maybe if you guys start, and then I can kind of jump in and ask more questions based on what you guys have to say. If that makes
Well,
any
do you
sense.
want us to start with coping mechanisms then? Or what
Yeah.
emotions are you feeling right now? Can we ask you that? What are you feeling?
My hands are sweaty, so I'm feeling hella nervous. They are, like, I don't know if you can tell. Angry, but yet, like, knowing that I shouldn't be angry because it's like everything that I know is like predictable. So like, how to deal with like situations that you, I guess, can't control, but like, if that makes any sense, like.
So, I just want to chime in because I think Shamina knows what I'm going to say, but the past like 2 episodes we have said how anger is a secondary emotion. So, do you feel like maybe you're angry because deep down you're hurt, and maybe you're feeling hurt because maybe you're mad at yourself? Or, I mean, you could be hurt for several different reasons,
Yeah.
but is hurt, do you think, your initial emotion? You don't.
Oh, okay. Like, are you saying, am I hurt and then because I'm hurt I'm angry? Is that what you're saying? So like my first thing is like I'm hurt, and then because I'm hurt and all of this stuff it's angry. I don't think it's. I guess, but not really. Like, let me think about it. Like, you see me angry, so you. I guess, yeah, but no. Like, I'm not really hurt because it's expected. Like, the what has transpired is like that was the expected. Like, I called it before. You know what I mean? Like, I kind of spoke it into existence. I already knew what I was looking for, but it's more so like
Would you say?
No, I think like maybe frustrated is a better word than angry, because I'm not like, man, this guy did this, I'm angry. No, it's like I'm frustrated because like I keep putting myself into the situation and I know what's coming, but why am I letting something that I know is going to happen affect my mood? Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Well, I don't know, Shamina.
I mean, you've been taking
She's
over
like-
a therapy role, so you're like going in like, did you know that anger is a secondary emotion? So what's lying underneath there? So let me commend you on your therapist skills there, because I was thoroughly impressed. I think some constructive feedback for next time is just let them answer the question first, because you were feeding her answers. So.
But this is why I'll never be a therapist. But anyways.
So let me kind of backtrack, because if you're listening, you may be a little confused right now. So Oksana is somebody who Karlie and I both know from high school, but also she had reached out, I think towards the end or beginning of, end of season 1, beginning of season 2, kind of asking us a question like, what are some coping skills to be able to use, like, in not just like with relationships, but basically like throughout life. And so as part of the season 2 finale, we wanted, we've dedicated our last few episodes to our viewers' questions, and so now we get the guest behind the question as well. So as a little background for people,
Yeah, I'm like, come on, answer my damn coping skill. I'm waiting. I'm just kidding.
I think it's a complicated question given the lack of information. Like, everything that I heard, I'm like, this is very vague. I have no idea what this means. And so our viewers, if you're comfortable kind of expanding on what exactly you're talking about, or in different scenarios that you'd like to be able to better cope with your emotions.
And can I just say, you don't have to be specific with like names or anything like that, and it doesn't have to be you. It can be a friend or really a friend. You know what I'm like? So if you're comfortable,
Okay.
don't do anything you're not comfortable doing.
Yeah. So this is like where I have to like it's gonna take a little while for me to like figure out how I'm gonna word things, because me, I'm just like, I look at you guys and I'm like, okay, I feel comfortable talking, and then I forget, hey, listen, like, this is gonna be broadcasted, so like when I say that, you already know things are gonna happen, right? So say like my neighbor always like
So
has a party every day of the week. Okay. And you're like, hey, like, this is like disrespectful. Like, hey, I work, Monday through Friday or whatever, right? And you mentioned to your neighbor, hey, listen, like, can you maybe if you want to go out like on or have a party Friday and Saturday, Sorry, my dogs are from each other. Sierra. So if you want to party like Friday and Saturday, I'm okay with that. Or, like, that's more reasonable. But when you're partying Monday through Friday, I work in the morning, like, I have the dogs that bark at every little thing. It's like, it's frustrating after a while. You keep saying, hey, listen, can you not party? Can you not do this throughout the week? And they constantly keep doing this, like, in one ear and out the other, right? Mm-hmm. So, like, for example, like, say last night, I was like, I had mentioned, hey, listen, like, I work in the morning, can you not party? And they're like, okay, and then come like 11 o'clock, they throw a party, and then they're loud, the dogs are barking. It's just like, for example, that was predictable, which made it like frustrating. Do you get what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So it's like, it's not that I'm angry at this point because it's gone on for so long. Like, they've been my neighbors now for what, 2 years? So like,
move the hell out.
But like it's easier said than done. You know what I mean? It's like,
girl, you ain't gotta tell me. I had a neighbor too.
Yeah. So, it's like, okay, well, how do I cope with something that constantly irritates me, but yet I know it's productive? Does that make sense? See?
My dog's
barking all week.
My dog's barking, which are making your dog's bark. So
sorry.
Where's Blue in all of this?
Yeah.
She's a good little angel.
Gotcha.
Sit.
Let me yell
Sit.
at my dog. Kobu,
Sit.
enough!
She's pawing.
Okay. So it sounds like what you're asking is more of like a lack of behavior change. And so how do you, when the behavior is consistent, how do you change your relationship with how you respond to it? So usually, you know, like when things happen over and over again, we'll get like disappointed or hurt or frustrated or angry because it's like, holy shit, like can something just change? And then she's ridiculous.
Mom,
and so
you're
like
doing
how
the podcast again. Hi.
how do we basically kind of alter like the definition of insanity? You know, you're doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Not that you're insane.
Yeah.
Karlie, what do you think?
Man.
Get the fuck out!
Move out. No. So I feel like, I guess I'll break down what Shamina said, like how I would perceive it, of like, you know, with me, when I was not with my neighbor, but when I was dating my ex, it was like, you know, like kind of like you said, of like, he would go out and drink, and my biggest thing was I wasn't comfortable with him drinking and driving. I told him several times, like, I don't like that. And you think, like, I'm out here, like, for your safety, I'm concerned, and you don't care. Like, you don't care about your own dang safety, and I'm caring more about your safety. So, I don't know. Like, for me, it got to a point, like, I was just, like, I think over it, but it was still frustrating, and so I had to remove myself from the situation. And I'm realizing, like, now, after I've removed myself from the situation and I've decided to, like, I've made Shamina, I've, like, made, like,
I thought... Go ahead, then I'll say
since I've decided to remove myself from that situation, but also work on myself, I'm noticing all of these other situations that no longer serve me, and I'm like, oh, like, I dealt with so much, like, you know, unhealthy boundaries, no matter what setting, if it's your family, your friends, your neighbors, your partners, it doesn't matter what setting. I think as soon as you make the decision to change because I think that person is never going to change their behaviors because you're allowing them to. Does that make sense? Because even though you're like frustrated and you don't care anymore, that neighbor's like, they're not going to do anything. Yeah, they're frustrated, but they're not doing anything. I've continued to throw parties every night of the week, and yeah, they're annoyed and they tell me, but that's all they do. You're not making any additional changes. You're not calling the cops on them to say, hey, you're doing a noise complaint. You're not, you know what I'm saying? Like, so yeah, like, so you have to change as well for that person to change their toxic behaviors, because they're benefiting. You're kind of, they're living the life, you know, they're partying every single night, and you just tell them that you're like that, you know, hey, I have work in the morning, can you be quiet? And they're like, okay. But then they're like, fuck that, I'm gonna party, and you don't do anything, so they keep going. I think they need like a shocker, you know, like you gotta call the cops on them. They're gonna be like, oh shit, you know, like
yeah. So like some type of consequence for the behavior, and whether it's like positive or negative. Side note: I made that face because my curtain is down, and all of a sudden I heard like this pounding at my window. So I thought somebody was at my window, like trying to like get my attention, and it was just my cats. It scared the shit out of me.
They're jumping on everything. I saw them last time, like on your desk, just crawling.
Yeah,
so she talks about me having blue on all the time, but her cats make a constant guest appearance.
Side note, for anybody who's been following the foster kittens that you may have seen, the little gray ones that I hold up, they have officially been adopted, and so now we have more foster kitties, so that was exciting.
But, so Oksana, from our answers, what are your...
I have an answer.
Oh, I thought you said Okay, continue.
All I did was summarize what she was saying.
Okay.
Anyways, So my example, Carly's is more about a relationship, and mine's gonna be more with like family dynamics. So this particular like situation, I didn't leave, or I didn't want to leave, if that makes sense. Like Carly like ended the relationship, and that was like basically like her way of curbing the behavior, so to speak, and like setting boundaries, what have you. So mine's a little bit different, just because of the family dynamic. So with this particular family member, their behavior was very, very consistent, and I was constantly feeling disappointed, hurt. I would get so angry, and I'd get so worked up every time it happened. And I got to the point where I was so kind of frustrated, like what you're talking about, Oksana. I was like, this is so ridiculous. Like, every time this happens, I feel this way, and I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I don't want to feel this way anymore. And so I really kind of, what I was mentioning earlier is that I started changing the way that I view my response to the behavior. And this is something I've done like clinically, helping my clients do, but also in my own personal life. And so now when that person does the same behavior, I don't get angry about it, because they're consistent. Like, that's what they're going to do. That's their pattern. And so when it happens, it's like, oh, okay, they're doing it again. Like, I knew that was going to happen, because we do. Like, we can predict that if it continues to happen over and over. And so I've changed reframed the way that I view the behavior. And so what it shows me is consistency and a lack of change. And so I'm able to kind of distance myself. I don't feel as personal. I don't feel as hurt when these things happen, because it has no reflection on me. I've done kind of similar things as like expressing this, or, this is what I want to see differently, that type of stuff. And again, it's like the same thing over and over and over. And so I've reserved setting any boundaries, because I recognize like it won't happen. It's not going to be able to, just at this time. What?
But I feel like you creating that distance is setting a boundary. And I was going to even make... What?
I just said that I set the boundary by creating the distance.
Oh, I thought you said you don't set a boundary. I thought you said... I must have misheard you. But I was... So then that makes a point of, I think the most common factor is boundaries, of like whether you're putting them in place and you're speaking up and being like, hey, this is unacceptable. And just, I think the biggest thing that I'm learning recently is like, you have to hold people accountable. One, for their positive behavior, but also for their negative behavior. You cannot let people just get away with it, because you let them get away with it once, they'll try it again. You let them get away with it again, and they continue till, like Shamina said, they become consistent. And then setting that boundary is so much harder, because now it's like, well, where's this coming from? I've been doing it for, whereas if you're upfront of like, no, I'm not about this, but boundaries are hard. But I just think like it is so important that we hold people accountable, and when they do something, there needs to be consequences, whether they're positive or negative, of like, hey, if you continue to do this, I'm no longer going to be in your life. I need to remove myself, because I can't be around this.
Right.
Or, hey, I'm really happy that you did this. Now let's, whatever it is. So
boundary setting doesn't necessarily have to be something verbal. Like, it doesn't have to be verbal communication. It could be a change in your own behavior. So, like in a relationship, like the change in behavior is, I'm going to be more withdrawn, or, I'm going to leave the relationship, and that's how we change. Or like with me, it was more of like, I'm not going to communicate as much as with this person, and that's me changing my behavior with it, and setting that boundary. Or like, with friendships.
Can I chime in real quick?
Yeah.
So like, say this is how, like, they moved in, 2 years ago, and say if, for 6 months, I was like, okay, whatever. And then, like, eventually, like, as time went on, like, that's when I kept saying, hey. And I, like, being direct, like, I'm very direct, you know what I mean? Like, I've come to that point in life where if I don't like something, I'll say, I don't like that, where people see it as controlling or whatever. It's like, hey, I have my voice, and you're going to hear me out, how you interpret or whatever. It's like what you think, like, I believe there's two sides to every story, and like, sometimes it can be very, blunt, but say, like, at that point, like, because I haven't said any, like you said, hold on, sorry, I keep saying, like, you said start withdrawing yourself. You know what I mean? So say I used to take both of our trash cans out because we put them in the middle. I'll do both of them. I'll be like, you know what? Like, I'll help you out as my neighbor. I'll take your trash out. You know what I mean? So I would pull out our recycling. I'd pull out all of that because, you know, that's a neighborly thing to do. Like, you got my back, I got your back. But then, like, eventually I'm like, you know what? You're not doing that for me. So I'm not going to take your trash out anymore. You know what I mean? So I have, like, been withdrawing on my actions toward that person, but it doesn't seem, it's like, it's not saying, hey, like, I'm really doing something to affect my neighbor. You get what I'm saying? It's like, hey, like, they don't like us partying every weekend, you know, maybe, like, I should be respectful. And it's kind of frustrating because they also have, like, a wife, and, like, as a woman, like, if I'm coming over knocking on your door and you're answering and you're telling your husband, like, hey, like, husband, maybe we shouldn't be partying every weekend because, you know, our neighbor doesn't like it, you know, like, she's voiced it to us plenty of times and to you and all of these things. And it's like, I have, but then, like, that with John, I have also been, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it's like nobody in that household, that whoever goes in and out, cares about how, you know, how it really affects me, if that makes any sense. Like, they're more concerned with appeasing, like, their friends who come over to party with them, or you get what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't matter because if they're making everybody else happy, me, I don't matter. You know what I mean? Because I'm there. Does that make sense? Does that... Okay. Sorry. Like, yeah. So how would you, like, cope with that? Like, how far could you set those boundaries, and how far could you withdraw from the situation? You know what I mean? And you say, like, move out, you know, and stuff. It's like, okay, I'm in this house. I've been here just as long as they have, almost, you know, but am I supposed to just pick up my stuff because of their actions? Does that seem fair? You know what I mean? But you say also, like, call the cops and do a noise complaint, but, you know, because I mean, I feel like they always, I don't know. I guess, like, I'm not the 911? You know what I mean? Like, I'm not a snitch or whatever, you know? Like, that's not my, you know what I mean?
I feel like it's not like, I don't know. I feel like snitching is like, man, I'm a grown adult. I'm tired of you keeping me up at night. Yeah, I'm calling the cops. I don't care if you think I'm snitching. You know, like, I think it comes back to, like, self-care and self-love. Like, for me, like, I need my 8 hours of sleep every freaking night. If I don't get it 8 hours, I'm going to be pissed. And my self-love is if I hear my neighbors up till 2 a.m., yeah, I'm calling the cops. And you know what? I don't care. Tell them it was me. I'll go over there with you. I'll go over there with you and knock on the door because, you know what? I need to sleep. So it's like, it's almost like you not calling cops because you're scared of snitching is putting that person first above you. That's how I see it.
I could agree with that. I think the theme that came up for me as you were talking, Oksana, is more of, like, when do you know, like, enough is enough? Because we reach a point where we can't do it anymore. We can't keep communicating. We can't keep, you know, trying to take the trash out and seeing if they'll reciprocate. And so that's probably one of the hardest parts for us, is to know when we've hit our limit, because we can always rationalize it, or we can always say, but, oh, well, it's just this, or, you know, maybe next week will be better, or, you know, oh, they ended the party at 2:00 instead of 5 today, like, you know, that's progress. So
that's how I think. I'm like, okay, thank God they, you know what I mean? Like, that does make sense. So keep going.
So I think that's a really important point, is just recognizing where your maximum level of effort is, because you'll hit a wall eventually and not be able to do it anymore. And then kind of speaking to what you have said of, like, you know, like, I've lived here just as long as they have, like, why is the responsibility on me, kind of thing. And I can completely understand that. But also, if you're making the decision for yourself and knowing what your intention is behind whatever the decision is that you make, that's enough justification. It doesn't have to be, oh, well, I gave in, or, oh, I'm losing this, or, oh, why do I have to do this over them? It's, I get to get the fuck out because I don't have to live here anymore and listen to your damn noise all the time. Or, you know, being able to choose yourself doesn't have to be this negative thing as opposed to like you're losing out on something.
Yeah. And I will 100% agree with Shamina of like, you'll reach your limit, but only you will know that limit. You know, like for me, I was with my ex for 5 years, and you know, I feel like so many people saw before I did, and there were so many times where we would like argue, and I can remember being like, I'm done. Like I feel like I even called you, and you were like, screw him, and I was like, yeah, I'm done. And then like 2 days later, I'm like, oh, he said he was sorry, so you know. But then like I don't know what it was, but just the last time it just clicked where I was just like, I can't do this anymore, you know. And it was just like the idea of going back and forgiving him again just kind of like was like icky. It was just like, I can't do that again. Like it just isn't, it wouldn't sit right with me, you know.
Yeah. But like I understand, so keep going.
No, go ahead.
Can I? Okay, wait. Keep going. Just keep going. I'll talk about it after. Keep going.
No, go.
So like you're basically. Say it again.
I said go because we're limited on time on this
platform.
Okay.
So like you're saying, everyone was saying it, and then it came to a point when you're like, you know what, I'm done. You know what I mean? So so I have 2 dogs, right? And if I move, it's gonna be hard to find another place where I can have 2 large dogs. It's not easy. Like the area that I'm at, you get what I'm saying? Like it's gonna be harder for me. You know what I mean? Like, and then like on top of that, you know, say if I decide to like screw it, I'm gonna pay the rest of September and then just dip. You know, like tell my landlord or whatever, hey, I'm out of here, and I have school. Like there's just a lot of factors that come into just like it's not easy just to pick up and go. You know what I mean? It's like I think that's too is like the stress level of staying up late. You know, like yeah, I've thought about leaving. You know, instead of just calling the cops on them. But then I think of all of these other factors, and like when I start thinking about everything, it just irritates me. Like because yes, I know the best thing is to say screw my neighbor. They're gonna just piss off the next person who moves in here. You know what I mean? And the person who like, you know what I'm saying? They're just going to keep pissing off the person, their neighbor. You know what I mean? And I don't know where I was going with that. Like, it's like I think about all of these things and then I stress about everything and then it kind of puts me back and like, okay, maybe it's not the right decision right now. You know what I mean? Like, maybe I should finish, at least this semester of school, get through it, maybe tell my job, hey, listen, like in the next few months, like let them know. So like they're not left hanging too. And like, look for, if I am going to stay here in this, area, see if I can find a place that's affordable to me, for me. Do you know what I mean? But like when I feel overwhelmed, that was one of my coping things is like, when I overthink and I'm thinking about things before they even happen, if that makes any sense. Like, oh, well, what if this happens and I'm going to be like over here or like this? And that's like one of the things that I need to cope with and take a step back and saying like, is that coping with something is like where to start in that process, and like from your guys' process, like, sorry, keep going. You guys can go. I'm all over the place because I have all of these emotions.
No, you're fine.
I'm full of emotions.
You're fine. Two things. I think one, and I tell this to my clients all the time, there is never a right time to make a decision for yourself. Like this, when I broke up with my ex, I was in my last semester of grad school, financially dependent. I had no money. We shared animals. I had to move. We lived right next to the university. I had to move over an hour away in order to find some place to live. It was the worst possible time ever that I could have done it. But going back and thinking back on it, I wouldn't have changed a damn thing because I would not have been able to get through the semester if I stayed in the relationship. So I say that relationship, friendship, family, whatever it is, there's never a right time for it because we'll always justify or rationalize an excuse because it's easier that way. So that's that piece. And then the other piece of like, how do I cope with basically what you're describing? It sounds like is like racing thoughts and like the anxiety of like, oh my God, where am I going to live? Or how am I going to afford this? Or what about school? Or what about work? Or what about this? What about that? And so your nervous system is starting to kind of go into overdrive, and we have to find a way to calm that back down. So that's going to be more of like grounding techniques and like reconnecting to your body in the moment, being able to calm down the nervous system. Because when the nervous system is activated, I think we talked about this in previous episodes, it releases your stress response. So you're pumped with adrenaline, you're pumped with cortisol, your body's like gearing up for like the fight or flight, freeze type of mode. And so it's very like survival. You're basically in like survival mode at that point. And so we have to calm that back down. And that can be, you know, like taking a step back, or my biggest thing that I always talk about in my class. Yeah, so like 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can taste, 2 things you can smell. So different types of like grounding to reconnect you in the moment, or like going for a walk and, you know, kind of recognizing like, what can I hear right now? What can I see? Listening to music, meditating, yoga. I don't know. What else, Karlie?
Well, okay, for the first thing I was gonna say on what you had said was agreeing with Shamina of like, there's never a right time, but also I think the moment you put yourself first and choose you, it's one of the hardest and one of the scariest decisions you will make.
Yes.
And so I feel like all of your thoughts are so like normal to have when you're getting ready to make this first step, because I feel like you're finally starting to put yourself first. Like, you're finally like, I'm not going to let my neighbors keep me up till 3, 4, 5 a.m. in the morning when I have to work at 8 a.m. the next day. And so, like, it's scary. It's super scary. Like, oh my gosh, can I do this? But like Shamina said, like, I don't think there'll ever be a right time. And when you make that decision, you realize how much you are capable of doing, if that makes sense. And then the last thing I was going to say is, like, with the coping of, like, for me, journaling. Like, I know I talk about this all the time, but that has helped me. Like, I legit have my journal right here, and it is, I have, like, almost a year's worth. I'm super proud of myself, and I just recommend journaling to everybody I see because I think it's the best. Your turn.
Are we going in like a little triangle? Okay. So like when I am feeling like this anxious feeling or whatever, do the 5 senses or journal or like whatever I'm feeling, you know, like don't let that like really last more than, you say, like 15 minutes at max. Like if I'm gonna journal it right there, get it out, or do the 5 senses, you know what I mean? So it's like it doesn't have like control my emotions rather than let my emotions control me is essentially
and I mean, I don't think there's any like time limit. Like,
I don't know, not that, but like,
oh yeah,
but you know, it doesn't matter. Yeah.
You do what works for you whenever you're feeling that way to like help calm you down. Like, you know, I also, like, for me, like, I really resonate with like quotes and sayings, and like one of the like quotes that I would always like remind myself is the best is yet to come. So like that really, like, I don't know, like I really liked it because it was just like, yeah, like whatever was in the past, I see more great things ahead of me, you know, but I have to let go of the past to experience those great things ahead of me. So, and I mean, I think every phase is a journey. So I think me and Shamina had talked on one episode of like even like the transitional phase when you're like kind of like relearning who you are, or whatever you think of as a transitional phase, but kind of like that phase where nothing, I don't want to say nothing, but like it's not like super exciting or whatever. There's still so much growth, I think, and things to acknowledge that you're doing during that phase that sometimes we forget.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, like a coping skill I use a lot, particularly after, like right after I get off work, is I go take a really hot shower. And for me, like having the hot water really helps, but I also do like this visualization and like I'm talking to myself. Sometimes I'll talk like out loud and I'm literally telling myself like I'm washing the day off, like I'm washing this emotion off and it's going down the drain. And when I leave the shower, I'm going to leave it in the bathtub or whatever, and like I tell myself that, and that's something that's really helpful like when I get off work or like have a really stressful day, and I literally like wash it off and it goes down the drain.
So it's just finding something that works best for you to like let it go.
Yeah. And this is kind of random. What'd you say?
I said video games. I'm just kidding.
Oh.
I'm kidding.
I thought you said masturbate, and I was like,
that too.
I was like, is that word for you?
I was gonna say something you said to me the other day, but I was like, I don't want to say it on here because people might think it's true.
What? Say it. Now I need to know.
You're like, oh, I got a butt plug. You're like,
oh.
Yeah.
I don't have a butt plug.
Yeah. Not yet.
No.
It's on her wish list. Amazon wish list, guys. I'm just kidding.
No, what I was gonna say, and I don't think this has anything to do with like coping or anything like that, but one thing that I'm working on, because I realize I like physical touch at night, I'll hold my own hands when I'm in bed and like I'll rub my hands like to give myself like that physical like, and like I tell myself, I'm like, good night, Karlie, I love you. Because I don't think that we tell ourselves we love us enough. And so like, I just whisper, I say it out loud, I whisper, I'm like, good night, Karlie, I love you. And y'all may think that's cheesy.
That is so cute, it makes me want to cry.
You're like rubbing your own hand. I love it.
Wow, I will legit lay in bed, like, as I'm, like, you know, my eyes shut, getting ready to, like, my TV's on, and I just, like, you know, like, because I like that feeling of, like, when you're holding hands with someone, they rub, like, I love that, so I'm like, I'm gonna do it to myself, man. So I just hold my hand at night when I'm in bed, and I pretend that, and then Blue spoons, she little spoons me, so I have Blue there, and, yeah, you. She's my little, I'm like, I just love you so much. And I'm like, maybe I need to, like, chill on that. But yeah,
she was here for you.
Hold your hands. I legit, like, she's my best friend in that sense of, like, she was there with me when I was crying. She'd curl up and just come by her mama. And so she's like this. I'm going to get a tattoo of her because she deserves it.
Anyway, this is about coping skills and our guest, not Karlie's dog and her love that she has for Blue. We'll save that for season 3. Thank you very much.
Well, rub your hands. Or, like, I saw something like this, like, you know, like, do that, or, like, give yourself a back massage, like, you know, like, I think, like, love yourself, you know? Make a point to, like, rub yourself down with, like, lotion, but not, like, the quick, like, be like, you know, like, get in there, man, you know, and do that stuff, like, rub every little nook and cranny, if you know what I mean.
But it's just like,
I feel like we're back in high school. We're back in high school.
We're at Karlie's house, just, like, having a bonfire, chilling out.
What up?
It's fun,
But yeah, I mean,
maybe like I might say, screw these neighbors. I'm gonna come back to Florida, and then y'all are gonna be like next door neighbors. not like neighbors.
If you do come back to Florida, you could join in when we have our seasonally group chat.
Yeah, I saw. Yeah.
You could be a new perspective.
This is I remember when Shamina told the story about, like, and then Omar goes, I rewatched that part like 10 times.
Turn it into a meme.
Yeah.
Yes. That's fun. So, Oksana, any other kind of, like, questions about, like, coping and different things like that before we start?
Yeah. So, like, say about, like, you're at work and, you know, like, not like coworkers or anything, but like, have you ever just like been? Oh, see my. Oh, cool. Is my camera still going?
Yeah.
Oh, I think my camera thing just turned off. So imagine like someone like yells at you and you're like in a professional setting. Like for me, it's like I kind of like, it's either I get like sad, like I'm like fuck, I'm gonna cry, or I get really really angry. Like it's like you're doing this in front of like, you know, whatever, like, or just, it might not just be at work, it's just in public, when you're out in public and someone says something to you and you're like, what the hell, like, why are you coming at me like that, or whatever the case may be. How do you handle with, like, those emotions when you're, like, deeply, like, upset and you take it personally versus just, like you said, well, I guess, no, you're saying it's not a reflection of you, like, say if the whole neighbor situation, so you're basically, I'm answering my own freaking questions. So, like, it's not a reflection of you when they yell at you. It's like, hey, like, that's how you're feeling. You know, okay, that's how you're feeling. I'm going to take that, but I'm not going to let you hurt my feelings or whatever because of your actions. Like, your actions, you know, that's what's going to happen. But, like, yeah, I guess I just answered that. Do you have anything to add on to that?
Well, I would say that that I think is like the ideal situation, is to remember that like whatever this person is projecting on you is really like how they're feeling maybe internally, but I don't think it's always easy to remember that and not be affected by it. I'm a crier, so I probably cry, or I get like, I would get really upset and be like, fuck you, and then I wouldn't talk to you and I'd be all quiet and like withdrawn. But I was going to make one point that I thought of real quick, and then I'll let Shamina actually acknowledge on that, is one thing that I noticed is when I was in my last relationship, I really would struggle like being emotionally stable. And I realized that when we talked about when I removed myself from that situation, obviously it took some time, but I was just like, I feel so much better. I feel so much more in control. And so I really feel like when you kind of struggle emotionally and stuff, to kind of like take a look at your surroundings and your environment, because I feel like your body tells you when something is not right, something's not aligning. And when you keep trying to fight it and you keep trying to not listen, your body's gonna continue to tell you till, like we've talked about in the beginning, where you reach that point where you're like, I cannot do this anymore. And so like, I think I always kind of knew in the back of my head that my ex wasn't the one for me and that we didn't really click. But I kept pushing it of like, no, we'll get through it. And then like when we moved in together and then COVID hit, and it was just like, oh my God, you know, like it was a slap in the face of like, and it was like my body telling you like, I've been trying to tell you this, but it was just like, and so it just like, it really hit me. But then when I removed myself, I was like, I can breathe, you know, and I felt like, oh my God, like I'm starting to feel like stable. I can handle other emotions, and yeah, but that's all.
So I definitely agree. And, you know, I give this analogy of like when we experience either trauma or just like stressor or just like somebody who we view as like unhealthy or toxic, like your neighbor, like just the continued pattern over and over again. So I kind of relate it to like this analogy of like you go into this forest and there's this big scary bear and you're like, oh my God, and you freak out. Well, what happens when the bear comes home with you and you live with the bear, or the bear lives next door and you constantly feel like you're walking on eggshells, or you expect like this pattern of behavior, but you're still getting upset because of the proximity of like living close to the bear, the neighbor, so to speak. So with those types of situations, you can use like the grounding techniques like in the moment. Again, like being able to refocus. Maybe you focus on breathing. Maybe you do like a 5 senses. Maybe you separate for yourself from that person or from the situation and just like have a moment to yourself just to be able to like feel how you're feeling and then like allow it to let go. And then when you are in a more like private setting, process those feelings, like talking to somebody, journaling, you know, however it is that you usually cope, those types of things. But also, there's only so much that you can learn how to cope with a situation if you're still in it and it keeps happening. because you're trying to change and grow, but this other like situation or person is staying constant, and so there's only so much that you can possibly do unless they're willing to like not have parties, or you know, they quiet down at like 11 o'clock instead of starting at 11 o'clock, and you're seeing that, and so you're able to kind of adapt with the change in behavior. But if it's still very consistent, how can you possibly cope with that? It's difficult.
So, like, in this part, it's like, so, like, say, like, you work retail, right? Like, say if you're in a retail position and a customer comes in and they're like, oh, they're saying things to you, and you're saying, oh, like, I can't return that because of X, Y, and Z. But, like, when they are coming at you, right, and then they constantly just keep coming at you, and, you know, you're like, you know, you're calmly saying, hey, listen, like, that's, you know, it's not my policy. Like, this is, you know, this is what it is, you know, and they keep saying things at you, and then they, like, come at you, you know, aggressively. In that point, it's like, you know, how would somebody react? Like, just keep taking it? You get what I'm saying? Like, if you were, like, if I'm sitting here, and they keep coming at me, and I'm just like, you know, whatever, like, I can't do anything, and it's like, you need that job, like, you get what I'm saying? It's like, you need that job to pay for, you know, whatever bills. It's like, you can't just, I mean, I guess it's easier said than done, like, with Karlie and her career and her past, you know, job and everything, but it's like, it's not always like that for everybody. Like, you worked hard to get to that point to leave. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, you had a backup, whereas, like, working retail, it's not that easy just to say, I quit my job, I'm going to go get a job tomorrow, and then, you get what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like, how do you deal with those situations? Like, do you just, you know, wait till you get home and then, like, journal about it and, like, let all your emotions out? Or, like, not saying that that's bad or anything, but, like, that means tomorrow you're going to go back to that same job because you need to go back to that same job, you know? And, like, that's the only job that you have. You know what I mean? Like, how do you cope with that consistency of, you know, is there going to be a mean customer today? Is there going to be a nice customer today? Am I going to have to tell somebody that they can't do a return because they don't have the receipt or the card that they bought it on? You get what I'm saying? Like, how would you cope with that inconsistent consistency, if that makes any sense? Like, well, there's a podcast that I was listening to.
Not ours. I'm just kidding.
Told myself. But, like, they were just talking about, like, there's, in a relationship, you want, like, stability, but you also want instability, like, that craziness in a relationship. So, like, when it comes to, like, a job or anything, it's like, do you want the job to be a consistent job that is, like, you know, boring or whatever? Zero. Or do you want that instability, or, like, how do you I don't know where I was going.
The first thing I thought of when you were talking about the initial, like, job and, like, you're always getting yelled at is start looking for another job. Like, the moment you are realizing that it's a constant thing every day happening, every single day when I get home, I'm looking for another job. So I think you need to, you start making these changes, and you do these changes where you can, and, you know, I'm gonna look for another job, I'm gonna keep it on the DL, but I'm looking for another job, and the moment I get another job, I'm out, you know?
But, like I said, it's hard because I also have, you know, dogs that I need to tend to. Like, say if I worked a 9 to 5, right? Say if I get home, like, say 6. Do you think the first thing I want to do is, after I take care of my dogs, after I eat dinner, after I work on my schoolwork, is to look for another job? Like, I feel like that's also draining too. It's like, not only am I working, you know, maybe, like, getting yelled at by, you know, the customers that come in or whatever, you know, may or may not, but, like, not only that, then I got a busy-ass neighbor who's party. You get what I'm saying? Like, there's, like, so many factors that you have to add on. So it's like I said, it's like, you were in such a good position where you were already graduated. You get what I'm saying? You were at that point where you were able.
You have to weigh you weigh it. Like,
Yeah.
for me, my job, I had a stable income every 2 weeks. I had insurance.
Wait. So, two things. One, we don't have enough time because we're running low on time. And also, I think my situation speaks a little more similarly than Karlie's because I didn't have the money.
Okay, go.
I didn't have the house. I didn't have anything.
Yeah.
So, it boils down to, I think, your values. And is this job consistent with the values of where you want to be in your career, where you want to be in your life? Are you willing to continue to stay in this, like, be treated this way in this job consistently over and over? And if it's that important to you to find another job, you will be able to make the time even though you're exhausted because, again, you're choosing yourself and you're choosing to put yourself first. And that is very, that's like one of the most important pieces of it, is kind of evaluating, like, do I want to keep doing this? Even if you don't have the means to be able, like, I literally had, the only income I had was my student loans, and I had to make that last, a whole semester. Like, I had nothing, and I basically had my whole life torn upside down because of the decision that I made. And I still, again, wouldn't have done anything differently or gone back because I finally chose myself and I knew that I would figure out the rest because that's what I've done all of my life. Like, yeah, I had animals with this person. I figured it out. Yeah, I had to commute. And I don't even know how I survived that last semester, like, honestly, when I think about it. But I did it because I knew that it was the right choice for me.
So one thing real quick, it's like, so I have a lease at this, so you know what I'm saying, it's not easy for me just to pick up, like, that's what I said, is like I have to tell my landlord, hey, listen, like, this is the deal, but I can't, like, it's a year lease, so it's not just a pick up and go because I can, and or whatever, and then just be done with my hands, because that's easier said than done, right? But like when you have a lease, that goes on your credit, like, it'll follow me, you know what I'm saying? Like, those are the things that I have to think about too. It's like, sorry, what am I saying sorry? That's what my problem is. I say sorry for things that I shouldn't be sorry for, It's like,
yeah, I don't even know why you said sorry.
I say sorry a lot. But, like, do you get where I'm coming from, though? Like, it's like, it's, if I could, I would. Because I've done, like, okay, bye, I don't need to live here. Like, I've lived in that mentality. But now that I'm getting older, like, I don't want to break a lease because I'm worse,
Well, have you asked the landlord what the consequences are? Because, like, I think, again, that's kind of you jumping to conclusions of like, well, I don't want to ruin my credit or anything, but if you went to the landlord and you were like, hey, I'm really struggling with these neighbors next door. Is there any way I can, end this lease early? Can we come up on some kind of compromise? And you never know, like, maybe you're in a really busy area and he's like, hey, don't worry about it. I have someone that's interested in moving in, but I said no because you have a lease. So, like, I think you got to weigh your, like, did you even think about doing that? Because I think the worst that can happen is he says, no, you have to finish out your lease or you'll be charged so-and-so, and now but at least you asked because now you know the answers, whereas if you're just like, I know this is what it's going to be, but, like, do you?
Yeah, but, like, it's a legal contract, you know what I mean?
Sure, but people, there's always, like, a clause.
I get, so...
It's legally binding.
Yeah, like...
But there's always a loophole.
Yeah. You just have to talk to the right person, which most likely would be, like, a landlord.
Yeah.
Or consulting with a lawyer, like having them look over your lease and being able to explore that route as well. So
if, like, because my neighbor was loud. Yeah. Maybe that could be because... So once I make it, like, a noise complaint, and then, like, yeah. Definitely take action, Oksana.
Yeah, and I think just, like, ask questions. Like, like, it's a whole learning experience. Yeah. I missed the funny.
Yeah, it's like, you got...
Y'all are haters. It's going to come in handy. You're going to be
I thought it was very touching. I thought it was touching.
I did. I like it, yeah. yeah, I remember when I was over there, you were like, oh, lotion the body, and I was like, yeah. Like,
It's my little nighttime routine.
So I think the theme of tonight is like gathering more information, being able to kind of recognize where is your limit, utilizing like grounding skills, like in the moment, how can you kind of calm down the nervous system so you're feeling more in control of your emotions instead of them kind of controlling you. And then making sure to revisit those, because it's like if we just constantly like stifle our emotions, like, okay, I don't want to feel this way anymore, I don't want to feel this way, they're still there, and so we have to do something with them, and figuring out what will work best for you, and kind of utilizing your support system along the way.
Yeah, I think that's a huge one. Like, lean on your support and let your support know that you're leaning on them, and be like, hey, you know what, right now I might need you a little bit more, and I may not be able to give as much as you're giving me, but I promise, like, when I get through this, because that's kind of like, I still talk to my therapist about how, like, I'm like, oh, like, I'm trying to make sure that I'm not talking too much, and she was like, you thank them, say thank you for listening to me and being there for me, and then she's like, and then moving forward, you try to be there for them like they were for you. But that's what your support system is like. It's a balance. It's not always going to be 50-50. There's going to be some times where you got to give more because they don't have it, or now they have to give more because you really need that support. And I think if you have a strong support system, they'll understand that. They're not going to be like, well, screw you, Oksana, you didn't listen to how my day was.
And if they do,
why are you using me?
Bye.
Oh, bye, guys.
But yeah, so we only have like.
Oh, I think you said you were leaving.
Oh, like
no. I was like, and if they don't like respect that, then bye.
Yeah.
So
are you wearing your reflection shirt? The one.
Yeah, girl.
How do you still have that?
It's my nightie.
Anyways,
but yeah, so.
We want to thank you, Oksana, for coming on today and being able to have this conversation with us. This is the first time we've ever had this type of conversation with a viewer, and being able to like answer questions live and in vivo. So I think it's been a really cool experience just to have a shake it up for the end of season 2.
Yeah, and you're welcome back whenever you want.
Let us know what happens with the neighbor.
Say it again.
What?
I said, let us know what happens with the neighbor.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I was going to say, if you have more questions.
What is this one going to be titled? The questions?
Do you want to give us the title right now?
Oh.
Let us know. What do you want it to be?
It could be called The Neighbor.
The Neighbor? Okay.
I don't care. Whatever you guys had. Yeah, thank you for like having me. Thanks for answering my questions, letting me rant a little bit, It was nice. Seeing like familiar faces is definitely helpful.
Yeah. We just want to help you.
And
move past this neighbor.
Provide a safe space to be able to talk about big emotions.
Shamina's so professional.
I know. I'm like, no. I like it though.
We want to help you.
Thank you. I'm over here eating a sandwich. I didn't even know I was being recorded. But all right, guys.
Thank you,
guys.
Bye.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
All right. So, are you feeling full yet?
Are you?
Are you?
We have to be quick with this one. If not, check. Oh wait, do we want to ask a question?
No.
If not, have you ever had any neighbor or anything in your life that just kind of left you not knowing what to do next?
Let us know.
Let us know. I just had a brain fart.
This is the season finale of season 2. We will be back in a week with our new season, so we will be taking a week off, but we will be back in 2 weeks, I guess, technically, since next week we're taking off, so the week after.
Oh, okay.
What is going to be that date? September 28th, our season 3 release premiere thing will be airing. So stay tuned. We're super stoked to be able to bring you season 3. Let us know any questions, comments, feedback about today's episode on our comments below, on our Instagram at EmotionfulPod, or our Facebook, Emotionful Podcast.
Yes. Thank you.
Bye.
Mwah, mwah. Bye.